My name's Richard Hale, 62 years old, builder by trade, father by title, and lately, apparently, a liability by everyone else's measure. I started Hale Construction 40 years ago with a pickup, 2 toolboxes, and a wife who believed in sweat more than luck. We poured driveways in summer heat, built barns that still stand straighter than some of the people I've met. By the time cancer took her, I'd built enough to leave something behind. Or so I thought. The house is quiet these days. I still wake up at 5:30, make black coffee, and walk the fence line just to remind myself the ground hasn't moved. But lately, it's not the land that feels unstable. It's the people. My son Evan started dropping by more often after my stroke last winter. He brings takeout, talks softly, keeps saying things like, "Dad, you've done enough. Let me handle the paperwork now." He means well, or at least that's how he says it, like charity dressed up as love. Bethany, his wife, plays nurse, keeps asking about my medications, gently moves my mail to a safe place. Last week she said, "You should rest, Richard. Maybe sign over a few duties, just temporary." Her smile never quite reached her eyes. I laughed it off. "Son, I was reading blueprints before you were born. My memory's fine." He smiled back, too wide. "Of course, Dad. Just want what's best for you." That night, I couldn't sleep. I went through the office cabinet, checking project files, payroll sheets, the small things that make a man feel in control. Everything was where it should be, until it wasn't. There, among the invoices, was a contract for a new bridge subcontract, with my initials scrawled at the bottom. Except they weren't mine. The R was too round. The H leaned wrong. And for the first time in my life, looking at my own name, I felt like I was reading someone else's ghost. Down at the bottom of the page, under the false signature, one line stood out in clean digital print. "Authorization valid upon mental competency reassessment." By Tuesday morning, the storm had a calendar invite. Evan called me into the boardroom, my own boardroom, at Hale Construction headquarters. The same room where I'd signed every payroll check, every safety certificate, every milestone that built this company. Now I was just Mr. Hale Sr. on the printed agenda. The walls gleamed with the new renovations Evan insisted on. Glass partitions, digital displays, everything slick, sterile, and soulless. I caught my reflection in the glass. Lined face, steady eyes, hands still rough from decades of work. The only thing shaky in that room was the loyalty. "Dad," Evan started, his voice smooth, "before we dive in, just want to say how grateful we are for everything you've built. This company wouldn't exist without you." I narrowed my eyes. Gratitude was always his opening move. Then came the lawyer, some young corporate type with gelled hair and a tablet instead of a briefcase. "Mr. Hale," he said, "we'd like to review your current operational status under Section 4 of the company bylaws. It pertains to executive competency." "Competency?" I repeated, laughing once. "You mean capability? I'm not dead yet, son." Evan didn't laugh. Instead, he nodded to the lawyer, who tapped his screen. The large monitor behind him blinked to life, displaying a scanned form stamped "Confidential Medical Evaluation." My name sat on the top line. Below it, a signature that looked like mine, beside the words, "Patient exhibits memory disorientation and impaired judgment. Recommended limited executive capacity. Dr. L. Ramirez, Neurology Clinic of Dallas." "What the hell is this?" I said, voice low. Evan exhaled like it hurt him. "Dad, please don't make this difficult. You've had some incidents lately. Forgetting appointments, repeating instructions. The board's concerned. Concerned? I barked. I'm the board. He glanced around the table. 5 faces turned away. People I'd hired, trained, trusted, all studying their notepads now. Evan folded his hands. No one's questioning your legacy, but it's time to think about transition. I've filed the paperwork for you to step back as CEO, effective immediately. You'll remain as founder emeritus. Founder emeritus? I said. That's Latin for useless old man, isn't it? Bethany's voice came softly from the doorway. Richard, please, don't embarrass yourself. My throat tightened. I looked around that room, the same walls that used to echo with laughter and plans, now closing in with silence and betrayal. I slammed my palm on the table. You forged that report. I've never even seen that doctor. Evan met my glare calmly. You have, Dad. You just don't remember. For a long second, the hum of the air conditioner was the only sound in the world. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. Per company policy, security will escort Mr. Hale Sr. out while the transition paperwork is finalized. 2 guards stepped forward. Evan stood up, pretending to look pained. This is for your own good. I didn't fight, didn't shout. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, You built your house on my name. Let's see how well it stands when the truth starts digging. As they walked me out, one guard whispered under his breath, Sir, off the record, they said you signed off on everything last Friday. I turned to him. And did they tell you where I was last Friday? He frowned. Hospital. Stroke follow-up. Exactly. That night, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. Every sound, the refrigerator hum, the floor creak, felt like it was waiting for me to leave. Evan and Bethany were already sitting at the dining table when I walked in. No TV, no music, just candles and 2 glasses of wine like they were hosting my funeral. Dad, Evan started, voice soft. You shouldn't have stormed out like that. The board just wants what's best for you. What's best for me, I said, hanging my coat, wasn't decided in that room. It was stolen. Bethany folded her napkin. No one's stealing anything. We're trying to keep you safe. Your blood pressure's been through the roof and... Stop talking like I'm a patient, I cut in. You signed documents authorizing this transition, Richard, she said gently. It's all legal. I walked to the cabinet, pulled out an old bottle of bourbon, poured a slow glass. Funny thing, I said. I checked the hospital log from last Friday. I was there for my stroke checkup when those documents were supposedly signed. I looked at Evan. Explain that. He leaned back, smiling faintly. Dad, you're confusing dates again. We talked about this. Dr. Ramirez. There is no Dr. Ramirez. I slammed the glass down, bourbon splashing over the rim. I built this company from the dirt with these hands, and you forged my name like it was an invoice. Evan's voice sharpened. Watch your tone. My tone? I laughed, a sound that didn't feel like mine. You took my company, my signature, and now you're taking my dignity, and you're worried about tone. Bethany stepped in, voice calm but poisonous. Richard, please. You're tired. You've been forgetting small things lately, even your medication. Evan's just trying to help before things get worse. I turned to her, slow and quiet. You think you're helping him? You're not his wife. You're his accomplice. Her smile didn't flinch, but her eyes did. Evan pushed his chair back hard. You're done, Dad. Legally, mentally, financially. You don't own a damn thing anymore. I've got power of attorney, and the court's backing me. Silence. The kind that hums in your bones. I looked at him the way I used to look at concrete before it set. measuring every crack. Power of attorney, I said softly. You got the power all right, but attorney? That means proof, and that's where you'll choke. He sneered. You can't prove anything. Nobody believes the confused old man over the guy keeping the business alive. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I picked up the bourbon, took a slow sip, and set it down with a small, deliberate clink. Son, I said, my voice steady as a hammer, you've built a kingdom on paperwork. Let's see what happens when the ink starts to bleed. As I turned to leave, I caught Bethany's reflection in the window. She was texting someone fast, her screen lighting up with one name at the top, Dr. L. Ramirez. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. 3 days after that dinner, the first one came from my banker. Mr. Hale, she said, voice careful, we've received an alert. Your son has been listed as primary on your accounts pending your medical evaluation. My medical what? Your competency evaluation, she said. Filed by your legal guardian, Mr. Evan Hale. I hung up before I could hear the apology. That same afternoon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from people I'd known 20 years. Hey, heard you're retiring early. Everything okay? Sorry about your health, old man. You had a good run. Evan says you've been forgetful. Hope you're getting help. Forgetful. That word burned hotter than any insult. By Thursday, the local paper ran a feature. Hale Construction enters new era under son's leadership. The photo showed Evan smiling in my chair, hand on Bethany's shoulder. The caption read, Founder Richard Hale stepping back due to health concerns. No mention of the forged signature. No mention of the coup. I couldn't even buy groceries without someone touching my arm and saying, Bless you, Richard. Must be hard getting old. The humiliation was surgical, every lie carefully designed to sound like concern. That night, I drove out to the yard, or what used to be mine. The security guard, a kid named Darren, stepped out of the booth and looked uncomfortable. Mr. Hale, sir, I'm real sorry, but I can't let you in. They changed the access list. I stared past him, through the chain-link fence at the workshop lights glowing against the night. Every beam of that building was mine. Every bolt, every nail, every wall I'd sweated over. And now I was a trespasser in my own legacy. I turned to leave when I heard a voice from the shadows. Hell of a sight, isn't it? It was Marcus Lane, my old foreman. Gray beard, leather jacket, eyes like gravel and smoke. He walked up slow, holding 2 coffees. Figured you'd show. You still working for him? I asked. Marcus shook his head. Not after he called me a liability risk. You believe that? Said I was covering for you. Told folks you'd signed the company over weeks before that stroke. Thing is, I got the shift logs, and timestamps don't lie. I looked at him, hope flickering through the wreckage. You still got those logs? He grinned, passing me 1 coffee. Got copies on a flash drive. Figured you'd want 'em. For the first time in days, I laughed, a short, cracked sound. You always were the smart one. He took a sip. What's the plan, boss? I stared through the fence again, watching my name glow from a sign I no longer owned. Plan, I said. Right now, it's just survival. Marcus nodded. Then we start there. He pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small voice recorder. Used it last week. Picked up a little conversation between Evan and Bethany after you left the board meeting. Want to hear it? He pressed play. Evan's voice came through, clear as steel. He's finished, Beth. Once the doctor's letter hits the county file, no one will ever believe a word he says again. Bethany's reply was a whisper, smug, sweet, Deadly. Good. Then the old man's empire finally belongs to the living. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not yet, just certainty. I took the recorder, pocketed it, and said quietly, "Then let's remind the living what it means to bury someone too soon." Marcus nodded. "You know, boss, if they used county records, that means there's a paper trail." I looked up, eyes cold. "Then we follow it, all the way back to the grave they dug for me." The letter came on a Friday, cream-colored envelope, county seal stamped across the front. Notice of competency hearing, Richard Hale. Date, next Tuesday. Location, courtroom 3B. That's how a man learns he's being erased, not with sirens or shackles, but with a line on official stationery. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the words until the ink blurred. The radio hummed low, some country song about loyalty, irony sharp enough to cut glass. Outside, dusk settled over the yard, swallowing the last light on the faded Hale construction truck parked by the fence. The repo notice had come that morning. They called it company property. My company, my truck, my life. Gone. The bank account was next. Frozen pending review. Even my personal pension got flagged under guardianship. I couldn't access $1 without my son's approval. Neighbors stopped waving. One crossed the street when she saw me checking the mail. "Poor man," I heard her whisper. "He doesn't even know what's happening anymore." Maybe that's what burned the most. Not the lies themselves, but how easily people believed them. I cooked dinner out of habit. Fried eggs, toast. The same meal Linda used to make when we were broke but proud. The eggs went cold before I could eat. The house creaked, old wood settling into silence. On the wall hung our wedding photo. Her in blue jeans, hair pulled back, grease on her cheek because she'd refused to change before taking it. Underneath it, a frame I'd added after her death. Built with love. Held with honor. I set my fork down and stared at it for a long time. Honor. That word used to mean something. Now it felt like a joke the world stopped laughing at. I stood, poured a glass of water, and caught my reflection in the window. A man unrecognizable even to himself. Eyes hollow, jaw tight. One hand trembling not from age but rage. On the counter sat the recorder Marcus gave me. I pressed play again. Evan's voice filled the kitchen. "He's finished, Beth. Once the doctor's letter hits the county file, no one will ever believe a word he says again." My son's voice. My blood. The sound of betrayal, casual as breathing. Something inside me went still. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm. I reached for Linda's old ledger, the same one we'd used to balance payroll back in '92. The paper was yellowed, soft at the edges. I opened to a clean page and wrote one line across the top. "I'm not dying on paper." Then I turned the page and wrote another. Phase 1, find the real doctor. Phase 2, find who paid him. I closed the book, slid the recorder into my pocket, and looked out at the darkness creeping over the empty driveway. They'd taken my money, my title, my reputation, but they'd forgotten the one thing you can't forge, memory, and mine was about to make them choke. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Got a lead. Doctor's license number doesn't exist. Call me tomorrow. We're not done yet." I looked at the message, the corners of my mouth lifting just slightly. "No," I whispered, "not even close." Saturday morning, 6 a.m. The kind of cold that makes a man remember he's still alive. Marcus showed up with 2 coffees and that same worn-out leather jacket that smelled like gasoline and grit. Didn't sleep either, huh? He said, setting the cup down. Sleep's for people who can afford peace, I muttered. He slid a folder across the table. Ran the license number from that Dr. L. Ramirez. You're gonna love this. Inside were 2 pages printed from the Texas Medical Board site. No record found. Below it, a smaller note. Associated email, ramirezconsults@medverifygroup.com. Domain registered to Bethany Whitaker. I felt the air shift in the room, slow, heavy, inevitable. She made up the doctor? I said quietly. Marcus nodded. She paid for a digital notary license, too. Looks like she used it to stamp your signature remotely. I exhaled, a sound that was half a laugh, half a growl. So she's the ghostwriter of my downfall. Marcus smirked. Yeah, well, ghosts leave traces. He pulled out a small USB drive, found the payment trail, invoice linked to Bethany's business card. And guess what? Her account used your company's billing number. Perfect, I said. She forged me with my own money. I opened Linda's ledger again and wrote across a fresh page. Phase 2, legal leak. Force them to validate the forgery in public. Marcus frowned. You're planning something. Planning? I said, sipping the bitter coffee. No, building. We drove into town that afternoon. Not to a lawyer, not yet, but to the county records office. If my name had been stripped on paper, it would be stripped there. The same lady at the front desk looked up, surprised. Mr. Hale, I thought your son... Yeah, I cut in. You and half the town did. She looked uneasy, but handed me the form request. I scanned the printed file myself. Right there at the bottom was the same forged signature and the same non-existent medical seal. And then, one line I hadn't noticed before. Witness, Dr. L. Ramirez. Verification submitted digitally via proxy. Proxy. That was the word that cracked the whole thing open. Marcus, I said slowly. You know what proxy verification means? He nodded. Somebody signed on someone else's behalf through a remote system, but county rules require in-person identity confirmation for medical declarations. Exactly. They'd broken the law the moment they filed it. Not incompetence, fraud. As we walked out, Marcus grinned. So what now, boss? I looked at the courthouse across the street, the same one where they plan to declare me unfit next Tuesday. We let them talk, I said, and while they do, we make sure every word they speak ties the noose tighter. He nodded. You're gonna need proof. I smiled faintly. Already got it. I'm just waiting for them to ask for it in public. That night, I sat on the porch, the ledger open on my lap, the sky full of slow-moving clouds. I wrote another line under Phase 2. When they call me incompetent, I'll answer with evidence. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Voicemail notification. I hit play. A woman's voice, tense and whispering. Mr. Hale, this is Clara Ross. I'm a detective with the county fraud unit. Someone filed a complaint about forged medical records under your name. We need to talk. Tonight. Detective Clara Ross didn't look like the kind of cop that asked for favors. When she showed up at my porch that night, windbreaker zipped, badge clipped, hair tied back. She had the same expression I used to see on site inspectors before a shutdown. Calm, but already seeing through every lie in the room. Mr. Hale, she said, taking a seat. I reviewed your case file. Whoever did this wasn't sloppy. They were confident. That's usually what gets them caught. Marcus poured her coffee. You're telling me you believe him? I'm telling you, she said evenly, I don't believe in coincidences. Especially not when the same woman who registered a fake doctor's domain also billed her husband's company for medical consulting fees. I raised an eyebrow. So you found it too? She smiled faintly. I find what I'm paid to find. And right now I'm not paid, which means I'm curious. We spread the documents across the table. Forged declarations, account transfers, timestamps. She studied them like blueprints, tracing connections with her pen. Then she leaned back. You want justice or revenge, Mr. Hale? Same thing, I said. Not in my book, she replied. Justice keeps you out of jail. Revenge doesn't. I met her eyes. Then call it balance. She nodded slowly, then flipped her notebook open. All right. Here's what we do. Step 1. Validate the ghost. Bethany's domain, the fake doctor email, the payment trail. We authenticate all of it. My cyber unit can verify the transaction logs and metadata showing your company funds paid for your own forgery. Once it's confirmed, it becomes Exhibit A. Step 2. Bait the confession. You've got the competency hearing on Tuesday. Let him talk. Don't interrupt. Don't shout. He'll over-explain. Men like that always do, when he starts bragging about protecting your interests. I'll have an undercover recorder in the courtroom. All we need is one slip that ties him to the document. Step 3. Expose the network. If he used forged credentials once, odds are he's done it before. My team's already found 2 more documents filed with the same notary code. One involving a subcontracting deal worth $500,000. That's criminal intent. Marcus whistled low. That's the rope, Clara nodded. All we have to do is hand him the end and let him pull. I sat back, letting the plan sink in. It was beautiful, not in a vengeful way, but in the kind of symmetry every builder respects. Detective, I said, you've done this before. Fraud's just construction, with lies instead of bricks, she said. You learn to spot the weak joints. I smiled, a small one. Then let's make sure this one collapses. Marcus looked between us. So what do you need from us? Clara stood, flipping her badge closed. Your patience, she said, and your trust. When you walk into that courtroom, they'll call you incompetent. Don't flinch. That's when we'll record him calling you the signature. I frowned. Calling me what? She smiled. The signature. He's not afraid of you, Mr. Hale. He's afraid of the man whose name he stole. So make him say it. That night, after she left, Marcus and I sat in silence. The wind rattled the windows like it was knocking for permission to enter. Think this'll work? Marcus asked. I looked down at Linda's ledger, the page now covered in neat black lines. Phase 3, record. Under it, I added one more note. Let him prove I'm alive. Marcus chuckled quietly. He's going to hang himself, isn't he? I nodded, closing the book. With a notarized rope. Tuesday, 9 a.m., County Courtroom 3. B smelled like stale coffee and polished wood. The kind of place where truth wears a suit and still gets cross-examined. I sat at the defendant's table, flanked by a public advocate I didn't hire. Clara sat 2 rows back, sunglasses hooked in her shirt, pretending to take notes. Marcus was behind her, hat low, a man with a secret mission in his jacket pocket. Across from me sat my son, Evan. Perfect tie, perfect smile, perfect lie. Bethany perched beside him like a queen waiting for coronation. The judge entered. Court is now in session for the competency review of Richard Hale. Evan's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is a simple matter. Mr. Hale's health has declined since his stroke. His actions have become erratic and financially irresponsible. My client seeks to maintain stability and protect the company's assets. I said nothing, not yet. The lawyer continued, handing the judge a neat binder. Included are medical assessments from Dr. L. Ramirez and supporting bank documentation showing irregular withdrawals. Clara leaned forward slightly. One signal. Stay quiet. The judge looked at me. Mr. Hale, do you have anything to say? I clasped my hands. Only that I'm more competent than the man who wrote that report. Evan gave me a rehearsed, sympathetic look. Dad, please. No one's accusing you. We're just trying to help. You've been under stress and— Speak up, son, I interrupted. Don't whisper your lies. The judge cleared his throat. Mr. Hale, Jr., continue. Evan took a deep breath. Showtime. I love my father, Your Honor, but the truth is, he's been struggling, forgetting things, mixing dates, and these withdrawals, he tapped a chart, prove he's no longer managing funds rationally. We had to step in before he hurt himself. Bethany touched his arm. Soft smile. He even accused us of making up a doctor. Evan nodded solemnly. We'd never do that. That's when Clara, 2 rows back, discreetly tapped her pen 3 times on her notepad. Marcus stood. Your Honor, he said gruffly, I've got evidence relevant to that last statement. The judge frowned. And you are? Marcus Lane, foreman at Hale Construction for 25 years. He pulled a small envelope from his coat. This came from the bank's fraud division, time-stamped and certified this morning. Evan's lawyer objected. This is irregular. Sit down, the judge said. Let's see it. Marcus handed it to the clerk, who carried it up. The judge unfolded the printout, black and white, official seal, date highlighted. He read aloud. Payment of $3,200 made from Hale Construction corporate account to medverifygroup.com. Memo, consultation fee, processed by Bethany Whitaker. The courtroom went still. Clara's pen stopped moving. Evan's smile cracked. The judge looked up. Mrs. Whitaker, are you a licensed medical professional? Bethany stammered. No, Your Honor. That was for administrative— Administrative what? The judge asked. Creating a doctor? I finally spoke, my voice calm, quiet, surgical. Your Honor, that payment funded the domain used to fake my doctor's letter. You can cross-check the registration. It lists her as the owner. Evan's face drained of color. That's absurd. She was helping. Clara stood from the audience, flashing her badge. Detective Clara Ross, County Fraud Unit. I can confirm that transaction is linked to an ongoing forgery investigation. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge leaned forward. So this entire competency declaration could be fraudulent? Yes, sir, Clara said. And if you'll allow, we're prepared to submit physical proof number 1, authenticated bank statement and domain registration documents linking the plaintiff's wife to falsified medical credentials. The judge nodded slowly. Entered into record. Evan's lawyer whispered urgently, We need a recess. Denied, the judge said flatly. You'll stay right where you are. Bethany's hands shook. Evan's jaw locked tight. I just folded my hands again and said, You wanted to prove I wasn't competent. Congratulations. You just proved I was the only sane one in the room. Clara leaned toward me and murmured, Next move's his. He'll panic, make a call tonight. And when he does, we'll be listening. I nodded, eyes on my son, as he stared at the floor. The higher they climb, I whispered, the louder the fall. That night, the house was quiet, but the city wasn't. Somewhere beyond the blinds, a siren wailed, then faded, like justice rehearsing. I couldn't sleep. Neither could Marcus, judging by the light still glowing in his truck outside. We'd won a round in court, but it wasn't over. Not until he said it himself. Clara had left the courthouse hours earlier, but not before slipping a small black box into my hand. Bug recorder, she'd said. Long range. If he calls her, we'll know. He did. At 11:47 p.m., the first static burst was faint. Then his voice broke through, nervous, clipped. Evan. Beth, tell me you deleted everything. Bethany. I tried. But that detective said they had logs. How could they have logs? Evan. Because you were careless. I told you to use my laptop, not the company account. Bethany. You said it was safe. Evan. I said it would look safe. Big difference. I sat at the kitchen table listening to my son's voice crack for the first time in years. That sound, the collapse of arrogance, was quieter than I'd imagined. He went on, Evan. Okay, listen. We'll spin it. Say the doctor was a consultant. We'll say Dad insisted on filing early. He's confused anyway. They'll believe. Bethany. They're not believing anything anymore. Her voice trembled. Bethany. You told me this would be easy. Just some papers, a few signatures, and he'd step down. Now there's detectives and subpoenas. Evan. Stop talking. I'll handle it. Just don't say another word on the phone. Then came the line. The one Clara had been waiting for. Evan. He's finished anyway. Once the court finalizes the incompetency, I'll transfer the assets overseas. After that, they can't touch me. I pressed pause. The recorder clicked softly, like the sound of a trigger half pulled. Marcus looked at me across the table. Wow. That's it, huh? I nodded. That's it. At 7 a.m., Clara met us outside her car, black coffee in hand, exhaustion hidden behind precision. You got it? She asked. I handed her the recorder. Every word. She smiled faintly. Then the reveal's ready. That afternoon, Evan called an emergency board meeting at Hale Construction. Damage control. He stood at the front of the conference room, eyes ringed, suit perfect, but posture stiff. Everyone's been misinformed, he began. The allegations are exaggerated. My father's condition. The door opened. Clara walked in first, badge out. Marcus followed, laptop bag in hand. Then me. Evan froze mid-sentence. Dad, what is this? Continuation, I said. Clara set a small speaker on the table, pressed play. His own voice filled the room, frantic, undeniable. He's finished anyway. Once the court finalizes the incompetency, I'll transfer the assets overseas. The silence that followed was total, thick, suffocating, lethal. The board members exchanged looks. One of them muttered, Jesus Christ. Evan lunged forward. You can't use that. Clara held up her badge. Recorded under court warrant, Mr. Hale. Perfectly legal. Bethany sank into her chair, face pale as drywall. I told you, she whispered. I told you to stop. I stood there, calm, steady. No yelling, no gloating. Just truth landing where it belonged. Son, I said quietly, you called me incompetent. But somehow, I'm the only one who remembers what integrity looks like. As the room erupted, Clara pulled me aside and whispered, We've got what we need, but there's more. The overseas transfer he mentioned, we traced it. Your company's pension fund. He's already moved it. Next step, we make that public. I nodded once, my jaw tight. Then it's time for the final demolition. By Wednesday, the air in town had changed. People who used to look at me like a relic now nodded with that uneasy mix of pity and fear. Like they'd realized they'd bet on the wrong horse. But Evan wasn't done. He never was. That morning, a man in a gray suit knocked on my door and handed me a thick envelope. Cease and desist. Unauthorized use of confidential company data. Filed by Evan Hale, CEO. I laughed out loud. First real laugh in weeks. He was suing me for listening to his crimes. Marcus found me reading the papers at the kitchen table. He's desperate, he said, trying to flip the script. Desperate men build their own gallows. I muttered, setting the letter aside. We just have to hand them the hammer. Clara arrived half an hour later, files under her arm, phone still ringing from whatever fires she'd been putting out. Congratulations, she said dryly. Your son just accused a county detective of aiding a hacker. Marcus whistled. He really wants to die loud. Clara smirked. He's already halfway buried. We pulled the wire transfer records he mentioned in that recording. The pension fund, Mr. Hale. He moved it offshore. I leaned forward. How much? $682,000, she said. Wired from a company account to a Cayman intermediary under a shell business called Bluewood Holdings. Guess whose signature authorized it? Marcus grinned. Let me guess. Dr. L. Ramirez. Clara nodded. Stamped and notarized. Fake name, same IP address as Bethany's laptop. Physical proof number 2, I said softly. She placed the printed statement in front of me. The county seal, the routing number, the red highlighted signature. Physical proof #2, international transfer record, authorized by fake medical proxy. It was the smoking gun wrapped in silk. Clara took a breath. We're submitting this to the district attorney tomorrow morning. But if you want the world to see it first, there's an option. I raised an eyebrow. What kind? She opened her folder. Inside, a subpoena draft for Hale Construction's upcoming shareholder meeting. Friday, 10 a.m., she said. He'll be there, so will the press. You're still a minority shareholder. That gives you the right to address the board, with exhibits. Marcus grinned. Public trial, corporate edition. Clara looked at me seriously. He humiliated you in front of that same table, Mr. Hale. This time you don't raise your voice. You just raise the truth. I nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the printout. My son's signature in forged ink, proof of betrayal, arrogance, and greed, all in one neat document. Detective, I said, bring every copy you've got. If he thought he could bury me with paper, let's make him choke on it. That night, Evan made his final mistake. He called Marcus. Didn't know Clara had flagged Marcus's phone after the hearing. Marcus, you old fool, Evan's voice snarled through static. You think siding with him saves you. When I'm done, you'll both look senile. I've got lawyers, PR. I'll burn everything he owns before he gets a headline. Marcus played it back twice, jaw set. Boss, he said, you still want quiet justice, or you want fireworks? I didn't answer for a long time. Then I picked up the ledger, flipped to the last page I'd written in. Under Phase 3 record, I wrote 3 new words, block letters, steady hand. Phase 4, broadcast. As I closed the book, my phone buzzed with an email alert. Subject: Hale Construction Annual Meeting, confirmed agenda update. Statement from Founder Emeritus Richard Hale. I smiled to myself. Good, I whispered. Let's finish what he started. Friday morning, the rain came down in thin, deliberate lines. Not a storm, just pressure. By 9 o'clock, the parking lot outside Hale Construction looked like a movie set for a reckoning. Expensive cars, crisp umbrellas, board members clutching folders like shields. Marcus parked his old pickup right up front, grinning. Nothing like showing up in style, he said. Clara met us by the door, coat collar up, tablet under her arm. You ready for this, Mr. Hale? I looked up at the building I'd built from nothing. The steel beams, the glass facade that still carried my initials in the logo. I was ready the day he called me senile, I said. Inside, the main conference room buzzed with tension. Evan stood at the head of the table, all polish and performance, hands spread wide like a politician addressing his people. Bethany sat beside him, makeup flawless, fingers trembling beneath the surface. "Before we begin," Evan said smoothly, "I'd like to remind everyone that these recent allegations have no bearing on Hale Construction's performance. The company remains strong, profitable, and under steady leadership." The door opened. Every head turned. I stepped in with Clara and Marcus behind me. "Morning," I said. "Steady leadership, huh? Let's see how steady it looks on paper." Evan's jaw tightened. "Dad, this is a private—" "Correction," Clara cut in, flashing her badge. "It's a recorded proceeding under subpoena." The room murmured. Evan forced a smile. "Detective Ross, still chasing ghosts?" Clara smiled back, crisp and lethal. "Only the ones who file offshore transfers under fake doctors." She placed a folder on the table and opened it. Crisp pages, red stamps, government seals. "Physical proof number 2, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Bank documentation showing a $682,000 transfer from Hale Construction's pension fund to Bluewood Holdings, authorized by Dr. L. Ramirez, a non-existent physician. IP trace, Bethany Whitaker's personal laptop, routing confirmation, Cayman Islands." Gasps rippled through the room like a wave. A board member muttered, "Jesus Christ, Evan." Evan tried to recover, words tripping. That's a mistake. An internal test account." Clara slid a flash drive across the table. "Audio file from your office phone, time-stamped 3 nights ago. You said," and I quote, "Once the court finalizes the incompetency, I'll transfer the assets overseas." Silence. Then one board member, the CFO, Old Donnelly, stood up. "That's corporate theft." Bethany covered her face. Evan snapped, "Don't you dare act like you're saints. I built this place too." I stepped forward, voice steady, quiet enough to make him stop shouting. "No, son. You inherited it. I built it. Every inch, every check, every man who trusted me to pay him on time." He turned to me, eyes blazing. "You think you can just walk back in and take everything?" I met his stare. "No. I can walk back in and take my name." Clara raised a hand. "Your Honor," she addressed the judge seated for the subpoena review. "Please note the document entered as Exhibit 2, physical proof of fraudulent transfer. We recommend immediate freeze on all associated accounts." The judge nodded, approved. Evan blinked, disbelieving. "You can't—" Marcus leaned on the table, grin wide. "She just did." 2 deputies entered through the side door. Bethany started crying. Evan froze like a man realizing the floor beneath him was gone. Clara nodded to me. "You want to say the words?" I looked around the room, at the men who'd doubted me, the employees who'd whispered behind my back, the son who'd tried to erase me. Then I said it. "I, Richard Hale, am mentally competent, legally sound, and done being silent." The judge signed the reinstatement papers right there. The ink was still wet when the deputies reached Evan. He tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. As they led him out, Evan turned back, face pale, voice shaking. "Dad, I just wanted control." I met his eyes for the last time. "And you lost it the moment you tried to take mine." The courthouse smelled like dust, ink, and the end of something rotten. 3 weeks after the shareholder meeting, the fraud trial of State versus Evan Hale began. And this time, I wasn't the one sitting under the fluorescent lights. Clara sat at the prosecution table, cool as steel. Marcus was in the gallery, arms folded. I sat behind them both, ledger in hand, not as evidence, as closure. Evan looked small now, still in his tailored suit, still combed, still defiant, but smaller. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a kind of twitching fear, the kind a man gets when he realizes the world no longer buys his story. The prosecutor clicked to the first slide. Bank transfer proof, fake medical report, audio confession, witness affidavits from 3 employees confirming he'd ordered the falsified notary. Clara took the stand. Detective Clara Ross, County Fraud Division. Mr. Hale conspired to falsify legal medical certification to declare his father mentally incompetent and assume financial control of Hale Construction, including unauthorized transfers totaling $682,000 to offshore accounts. His lawyer tried to object, but every objection sounded like an apology. Then the judge turned to me. "Mr. Richard Hale, do you wish to make a statement?" I stood. My knees ached, but my voice didn't waver. "I built a company, Your Honor. I built it with calloused hands and a woman who believed in honesty more than profit. When my son took over, I wanted to believe he'd carry that same weight. But greed doesn't build. It rots." I held up the ledger. "This is what my wife and I kept for 40 years. Every payment, every hour, every truth written down. And not once did I fake a line in it." The judge nodded slowly. "Noted." By the afternoon, the verdict came down. Guilty, multiple counts. Fraud, falsification of medical records, corporate theft. Sentence, 5 years, no parole. When the gavel hit, the sound echoed through the courtroom like a hammer striking steel. Final, clean, deserved. Evan didn't look at me when they cuffed him. Bethany cried quietly beside the aisle. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just distance. A man can forgive the past, but he doesn't have to forget it. The company sent me a new plaque the next week. Richard Hale, founder, 1983. They asked if I wanted to attend the relaunch event. I said no. Instead, I spent that day at the workshop behind my house, sanding down an old oak beam Carol and I had salvaged from our first build. Marcus dropped by around noon. "Paper says your boy pled guilty," he said. I nodded. Paper finally told the truth. He smiled. "You going back to work?" I looked around the shop. Sunlight through sawdust, smell of wood and oil. "Nah," I said. "I'm done building for others. Time to rebuild myself." He laughed. "Always knew you'd get the last word." I glanced at the ledger one last time, flipped to the final page and wrote, "Case closed, ledger balanced." Then I shut it, placed it on the shelf beside a photo of Carol, and let the silence settle. Sometimes revenge isn't about burning the house down. It's about standing in what's left and realizing you're still whole. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories Men U55 America, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.